Today, a Redditor confesses they're terminating their parental rights. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, I got made fun of for being trans today. I'm not trans. When I was walking through the mall today, two random teenage boys started yelling transphobic slurs at me and saying that I would never be a woman. I am a cis woman. I just have very masculine features and a flat chest. I'd like to pretend that it didn't hurt, but holy crap, it did. This has happened to me multiple times. I just wish I could be a pretty girl. I don't like going into women's bathrooms anymore because I'm scared of someone getting angry at me for it. I feel horrible for trans people. I can't imagine the harassment they have to endure. I don't know why people are so cruel. While I think it's obvious that rude people have been around forever, when I see or hear something like this, it always makes me wonder if it's from social media being in everybody's brains. You look at TikTok, you look at Twitter, you look at YouTube comments that aren't filtered or restricted or moderated. Not even in just the trans sphere, but really anything. There's almost always going to be somebody on there trying to comment the most wild joke or take or whatever, just intending to hurt you. Like, with how common it is, it makes me wonder if it's not necessarily spilling over into real life, but kind of nestling itself in people's minds that acting like that is okay. Like, I'm gonna be honest, even on Twitter, I've reported accounts that have like nothing but literal images of just the N-word and racist imagery, and after a week or two, the automated moderation bot that probably didn't actually check anything replies and says, "So-and-so's account that you reported didn't violate any of X's policies." So I guess my long-winded babble is to say, I'm not really surprised, unfortunately. Heroine2 commented, "When I was a teenager, I had many kids point at me and say, 'Mommy, is that a girl or a boy?' I'm also not trans, just a cis woman. Boys at school would also make fun of me and call me a lesbian. At the time, there was no controversy over bathrooms, etc., so I feel bad this is happening to you now. It bothered me then, but this is definitely more stressful now with the current political air. I hate people, to be honest. I'm trying to raise my daughter to understand why these things are hateful, and people are just trying to live their lives. My husband and I constantly talk about how world peace is out the window and whatever happened to trying to achieve it. Seems that adults should be better than this. There's not enough love in the world." Creative Bar 1960 commented, "World peace is honestly not possible, not through pacifism, and frankly, people like that are the anchors that hold humanity back. Sounds extreme and maybe to a degree not even better than them, but honestly people like that don't change through words, but through getting what should be coming to them." Our next story is another cake smashing ending in divorce. I think this is the fourth one of all the weddings I've ever attended. My mom's childhood best friend's daughter, late 30s, got married last summer. They made it 10 or 11 months. My wife and I were invited. The wedding was fine. Cake time, groom has a forkful, goes to feed it to his bride, but drags his hand upwards to smear the cake on, I guess, her cheek. The fork tines end up cutting her upper lip a little, and there's this weird 5 minutes where they're holding a fancy table napkin against her face to stop the bleeding. I still remember the look my wife gave me with a shocked, "What was he thinking?" Both of them looked awkward and uncomfortable in the right after moments. Guys, unless your fiance explicitly tells you to do it for the photos or the memory or whatever, don't do it. Someone told me the divorce rate is higher when people smash cake in each other's faces. Seems there's a bit of truth to this. I myself think it comes down to knowing your partner. Just like I feel like you have to know the answer is a yes before you propose, you have to know that your partner would be okay with such a thing before smashing the cake in their face. I mean, in no way is it a shock to me that somebody who is likely to get divorced is also a person who would go and smash cake in their partner's face without actually being sure that they would be okay or equipped to handle that. Misanthrope1 commented, "I recall the Reddit post where OP's fiancé conspired with his best man to push the wife's face in the cake. Her hair, makeup, and dress were ruined. She walked out and the groom's brother took her home, telling her he pulled so many pranks on him over the years, he basically doesn't see him anymore. She immediately packed her bags and left and filed for divorce. What makes any man think his wife would enjoy being the butt of his joke at her own wedding?" Rising Sun 70 commented, "I read this post or a similar one. She repeatedly told him not to do it, but he did it anyway and then was surprised Pikachu face when she followed through and walked out and divorced his butt. When you tell people not to do something and they do it anyway, those are people who don't respect you or listen to you. So I'm not surprised most of these weddings where one person doesn't want this to happen, the marriage ends in divorce." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy crazy Redditor confessions, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? Our next story is, my wife just stopped talking to me. I don't know when it started, but now it's just silence. It's not like we had a big fight. There wasn't even a clear moment. One day we were laughing over dinner, and now she barely says more than a few words to me in a day. No good morning, no how was your day, nothing, just silence. She still does everything around the house, she still takes care of the kids, still shows up, but emotionally, it's like I'm a ghost. I asked if something was wrong and she said, "I'm just tired," but this tired has lasted months. I don't cheat, I don't lie, I work hard, I try, but I feel I'm losing her and I don't even know why. Has anyone else experienced this? What did you do? You know, I'm definitely no expert in situations like this. I'd love to hear what you guys think if there's something that could be done. I feel like it's always going to be a major issue if they're not willing to communicate or really let you have any insight into what it is they are dealing with. I guess really all you can do without really knowing what's going on is just trying to make their days easier in whatever way you can. Throwaway Queen 52 commented, "Try helping her without her asking or giving you step-by-step instructions. Try making dinner, picking up bath time, giving her a night off. Spend time one-on-one with her, if you can. Just start by showing her you're willing to help her lighten the load if she's telling you she's tired. She may start opening up a bit. I do mean this in the nicest way possible. There's no prize for not cheating or lying. This is the bare minimum for marriage. That's like saying you should get a raise just for showing up to work. You wouldn't expect that at work, so why do you expect that from your marriage?" OP then went on to make an update post. Update, I showed my wife the post. We talked, really talked. I didn't expect this post to get so much attention. Thank you for all your comments, stories, and honesty. I read many of them, and then I did something that felt terrifying at first. I shared the post with my wife. We sat together in silence at first, but then for the first time in what felt like forever, we talked, really talked. She cried. She told me how heavy everything felt, that even though I wasn't trying to hurt her, it felt like she was carrying the weight of two people all the time. Dishes, laundry, school drop-offs, doctor appointments, meal planning. The invisible labor that so many people in the comments mentioned, it was real and she'd been drowning in it. And I just hadn't seen it. Our kids are 8 and 6. They're wonderful, but anyone with little ones knows how draining that phase of life can be. Add to that a partner who's unknowingly been more of a roommate than a teammate, and yeah, the silence made sense. So I started small. I took over some of the chores without being asked. I made dinner last night. I planned a fun weekend activity with the kids, just me and them, so she could have a real break. And next week, we're all going on a little family adventure together. Something light, something fun, something healing. It's going to take time, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hope, and I owe so much of that to you all. Thank you, truly. I'm just glad that breakthrough happened, and once again, it all comes back to that ability to just communicate. In no way am I trying to blame the wife for feeling like they feel and not being the most open book about it, but what I am saying is if you can communicate, as long as your partner is an actual, understanding, decent person, things can improve and shockingly way quicker than maybe you could imagine. Vintage Misery commented, "One of the main conclusions that can be drawn from these stories here is that people need to have a lot of honest conversations with each other. Most of the time, it isn't a lost cause. Congratulations on this breakthrough. I hope everything works out for you." OP responded, "You're absolutely right. Honest conversations can be powerful. I never thought one simple post would lead to such an important shift in our relationship. Thank you for the encouragement and for believing it's never a lost cause." Existential Wonder commented, "I am so proud of you for taking action. I say this as a mother and a wife of 20 years. Please consider going to marriage counseling. You're definitely going in the right direction, but when my husband and I went, it added a whole other layer of love and respect to our marriage. We made a sort of date about it because he had a weekday off, so while the kids were in school, we would go out to breakfast, do a little thrift store window shopping, and go to therapy. Learning deeper levels of communication is so invaluable not just to your marriage, but to yourself and your kids. I wish you guys the very best." Our next story is, "My fiance got the worst news of his life, and I think I'm being selfish. I know this may be part of the grieving process in accepting the news, but it physically hurts. Less than a week ago, my fiance, 40-year-old male, found out he has cancer. There were no symptoms that previous doctors were ever concerned about, and due to his age, we never thought to push too far on it. Today we found out it's stage 4 colon cancer that has metastasized to the liver and potentially other organs. We will know more pending the results of more labs and imaging, but the doctor estimates without treatment he would have maybe 5 months. With treatment, maybe 2 years. I feel like the wind has been knocked out of me. I've been trying to be strong and stand by him, but now I can't stop sobbing and think about how I wish it were me instead. How I wish I had it and he didn't. I know in the morning I'll be calling my therapist, but it's so hard to breathe now. It's such devastating news to hear for OP, but I don't feel like their reaction is actually out of pocket or selfish. You know, I thought OP with the title of this post and then going into how their partner found out they have cancer, I thought OP was going to say, I'm being selfish by saying that I want to run for the hills or something. You know, something that really kind of opens up a genuine dilemma conversation here. Not a, I wish it were me on the line and not my partner, because I feel like that's just a very actual, genuine reaction. Bitter Animator 2514 commented, so my husband was the same. He was given 5 months to a year to live. That was 4 years ago. He's still alive. It's been rough, but he has a massive tumor in his rectum that has metastasized to lymph nodes, liver, and lung. He's had multiple surgeries, but as for you, feel what you need to feel, just don't live in that pain. Talk, don't sweat the small things. At the moment, your life will feel like a tsunami of feelings, emotions, and you may not know what weighs up. That's okay, take it as it comes. Breathe through it and scream if you need to because it does hurt, but you will be strong enough to face it. Fuchsia Cuddle commented, absolutely this. OP needed to hear that it's okay to fall apart sometimes too. They're carrying the weight of the unknown while trying to stay strong for someone they love. It's human to break under that. There's no shame in feeling the fear or sadness. Our next story is what my boyfriend just said to me in my sleep. ETA, I can't fix the title, but I meant to put his sleep. Also, sorry for the formatting on mobile. I have finally found a boyfriend that is compassionate, silly, and really cares about my well-being. Like honestly, I've been going through the trenches with men and it's been such a relief to finally find someone who just gets me and really cares about me. He also talks in his sleep a lot, and tonight he made me laugh so hard and also made me feel like he does really care. I had come to bed after working late. The plan was that I go eat something, put the laundry in the dryer, and come to bed. When I came back, he was mumbling to me and I asked him, what is it? Because I kept hearing, don't forget, don't forget. After I asked him what, I really expected him to say to put the laundry in the dryer, but no, he said, don't forget to use the seasoning flakes on the table. I have never heard him say this phrase in my life. Then upon further inquiry, I said, for what? He replied, for your food, babe. I just want to make sure you always have delicious food. So silly, but I just love this man and I'm so happy that he cares about the deliciousness of my food and I can't wait to tell him about this tomorrow. Well, I would say that it's certainly better than him going, don't forget, don't forget. Forget what? Your birthday, I'm trying not to forget it again. Or, you know, insert any other forgetful boyfriend things there. Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, our anniversary. Dirt and Worms commented, my favorite is about when a year ago, in his sleep, my fiance said, be careful getting into the rocket ship after shoving me. It's been a running joke since. Every once in a while we'll say it to each other as we're about to get into the car. Just today we were talking about that and how poetic it would be if on my deathbed, as I'm taking my last breaths, he tearfully told me to be careful getting into the rocket ship, and I joked that my last breath would be a laugh. Our next story is, they talk about a family trip from 30 years ago like it happened last week. Every dinner was a trip down memory lane. Same story, same lines, same laughter. It was a trip to Yellowstone they took in 1989, and they never came back from it. Mentally, at least. At first, I found it nostalgic. Then I realized they were rehearsing a fantasy they needed to survive. I lived with my wife's family for a couple of years. From the outside, everything looked normal. Middle-class house in suburban LA, freshly cut lawn, framed photos on the wall, but inside, it felt like a time capsule. The furniture, the TV shows, the conversations. There was always an old sitcom on TV, Cheers, Full House, Golden Girls, and someone would inevitably say, they don't make them like this anymore. And then the stories. The family trip to Yellowstone came up at least twice a week. They talked about the broken down car, the bear encounter, the lodge breakfast. Everyone had their part in the story like a script they'd been performing for decades. They even laughed at the same lines, at the same timing, every single time. My wife, despite being born and raised in LA, often said things like, "Ugh, city people are so rude," or "Back home, we knew how to treat each other right." Back home meant a small rural town her parents came from where they still had relatives. She kept in close contact with them. Holidays were scheduled around their calendar. Their traditions ruled our life. And her brother, he was 40, didn't work, lived in the room he grew up in. The walls were plastered with merch from a regional cartoon mascot. Plush toys, posters, pins. He called the character by name like it was a friend. He once told me without irony, "She's the only one who gets me." He wasn't kidding. Then their mother passed away. Their father was diagnosed with late-stage cancer, and even then, they didn't snap out of it. They didn't talk about death. They doubled down on the past. She's still with us in spirit. Dad's strong, he's a fighter. They kept watching the same shows, telling the same stories, clinging to a world that was slipping through their fingers. I wanted them to see it, to face the moment, to grieve, but they couldn't, and I couldn't stay. So one day, I left. Now I wake up in a one-bedroom apartment across town. It's quiet, it's mine, the coffee tastes stronger, the mornings are real. Their house still stands, but mentally it collapsed long ago. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it felt like OP wrote this as part of some poetic writing project. That said, I feel like for better or worse, there are those families out there that have that kind of cultish behaviors to them. They kind of have their storyline and their world and their bubble, and they very much do not dare to go out of that bubble. I mean, I guess for a family that maybe grew up very rural or secluded, it's not crazy that this happened, right? Taco Hannah commented, "There's a storyline in 30 Rock similar to this. Liz Lemon's brother is stuck on a day in 1985 due to a high school skiing accident, and her family just goes along with it and refuses to break the illusion for him despite it being 23 years. It touches on how the unwillingness to face the trauma and get help means everyone around them is stuck too, and how powerful denial can be. Our next story is, I pretended to be a girl on Discord for years, and I don't regret it. From 2019 to 2023, and a little in 2024, I was addicted to Discord. I was just a 16-year-old guy in lockdown, bored out of my mind, attention-starved and lonely. So yeah, I pretended to be a girl. At first, it was just curiosity and trolling, but then I realized being a girl on Discord came with perks. Free stuff, instant friends, mod roles, attention. I saw how differently people treated me, and I leaned into it. I even used my sister's voice once to pass a voice verification test, got the girl role, got mod roles later. Some people were sus at first, but slowly they trusted me, mostly because I just acted normal and was fun to talk to. I ended up talking to creepy dudes, kids who thought I could hack them, they were scared to even open a meme I sent, and even a few online boyfriends. Cringe now, but yeah. I never used voice with them, just acted the part. When things got serious, I ghosted them. I wasn't looking for any relationship. People trust strangers online too easily, and some of the guys I met were so creepy. It gave me insight into what real girls must go through online. There were people asking personal stuff, trying to flirt, getting mad if I didn't respond, expecting access to my real identity. That disgusted me. And honestly, even though I was faking it, I felt violated sometimes. I also bullied a few annoying kids, nothing extreme, they were just scared of me thinking I was some hacker. It was dumb but funny back then. By 2024, I dipped from Discord. School got serious, class 12, and ironically, I got into a real-life relationship. I told people I had to leave because I have real life too, and I did. Looking back, I don't really regret anything. I learned a lot. People are naive online, being a girl online is literally a survival game, creeps exist everywhere, and messing around can actually teach you real-life skills. I got into programming, automation, botting, all through Discord servers. Yeah, I was a weird, lonely teen, but I'm 19 now and a lot more mature. Not proud of everything, but not ashamed either. It was a phase, and it taught me stuff. So definitely I think one of the more bizarre self-confessions I've ever read. Definitely not going to be something I would ever sanction or approve of, but at least everything seemed to work out fine. I certainly want to believe OP's word that nothing ever went too far or they didn't do anything inappropriate, because honestly the alternative starts getting very, very murky and disgusting real quick. Our next story is, my sister-in-law keeps finding ways to make my big moments about her. What she did at my baby shower felt like the last straw. I, 32-year-old female, really need to get this off my chest because I feel like I'm constantly questioning my own sanity. My husband Mark, 33-year-old male, is a truly wonderful guy and we're expecting our first baby, a girl, in a couple of months. It should be such a happy time, but his sister Chloe, 30-year-old female, has this way of, well, making things difficult. It's like a pattern. Whenever there's an event that's important to me or us, something happens with Chloe that shifts the focus or just casts a shadow. It's always framed as an accident or her being forgetful or clumsy, and if I ever seem upset, I'm made to feel like I'm being overly sensitive. Mark tends to give her the benefit of the doubt, saying she's just a bit ditzy or doesn't mean any harm. And I've tried. I really have to believe that. For example, at our engagement party, she tripped and spilled a dark drink all over the light-colored dress I was wearing. Lots of apologies, of course. For my bachelorette, which my friends planned, she mixed up the dates and booked her travel for the wrong day, causing a lot of stress and last-minute changes to accommodate her. She was mortified about it. At our wedding, she was a bridesmaid, and right before the ceremony, there was a huge drama because she realized she had forgotten a crucial piece of her outfit, like specific jewelry that was part of the bridesmaid look, leading to a frantic search and delaying things. I've always tried to just smooth it over, say it's okay. Mark usually does too. But my baby shower last weekend just felt different. My best friend Jess and my mom hosted it, and it was supposed to be a really lovely, relaxed afternoon with close friends and family. I was actually enjoying myself. Chloe arrived a bit late, apologizing about getting lost, even though she knows the area. Then, while we were all chatting and I was opening some gifts, she started telling this long, very detailed, and quite harrowing story about a friend of a friend who had a really traumatic birth experience recently. She didn't just mention it briefly, she went into graphic detail. The kind of details no pregnant woman, especially a first-time mom a few weeks from her due date, wants to hear. She talked about complications, emergency interventions, the baby's distress, the whole 9 yards. She told it all with this air of, oh, it was just so awful, I can't stop thinking about it, but she was looking right at me for a good part of it. The mood in the room just plummeted. You could feel the discomfort. A couple of my friends tried to gently change the subject, but Chloe just kept going, almost like she didn't notice or didn't care that she was making everyone, especially me, incredibly anxious. I felt my heart start to race and I could barely concentrate on anything else. Jess eventually had to very firmly interrupt her and steer the conversation elsewhere. Later, when Chloe was apologizing to me privately for maybe oversharing, she said, "Oh, I just thought, it's good to be prepared for anything. I didn't mean to scare you." But her eyes had that same flicker I've seen before, like she knew exactly what she was doing. When Mark and I talked about it later, he initially said, well, maybe she was just trying to be helpful in her own way? You know Chloe, she doesn't always think things through. And that's when I just felt so defeated. I asked him, Mark, how is telling a pregnant woman terrifying birth stories at her own baby shower helpful? How is that anything but incredibly insensitive and thoughtless at best? He did concede it was bad timing and poorly judged, but I still don't think he fully gets the pattern of her behavior. It's not one big, obvious thing, it's this constant drip 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 of accidents and thoughtless comments that always seem to happen when I'm supposed to be happy or celebrating something. The story at the shower wasn't as overtly sabotage-y as a wrongly named blanket, but it was just as effective at ruining the moment and planting a seed of fear and anxiety right when I'm at my most vulnerable. I'm just so tired of it. I'm tired of having to brace myself for what she might do next. I haven't said anything more to Chloe, but I can't just keep pretending this is normal or acceptable. I don't want this kind of energy around me or my baby. It's not about wanting a fight, it's about wanting some peace and respect, especially now. This latest incident has really made me feel like I need to draw a line. She has found a way to royally screw up every single time. OP's partner can't recognize that every single time there is something that goes wrong that utterly ruins the event in some major way for you? Well, you know her, she's just klutzy, she's just ditzy sometimes. Every single time? Does OP just have to accept that every major life event that's with them and involves family, that she'd be there, that she's gonna just ruin something inevitably because she's just a bit ditzy sometimes? Reader Rabbit 23 commented, before the next time she's around you, predict to Mark that she'll do something distressing, then when she does, point it out to him and to her. You know, Chloe, I've noticed that you always try to spoil things for me. You spilled a drink on my dress at my engagement party, you forced me to reschedule my bachelorette because you mixed up the dates. I wouldn't do that again. If she can't come to something, just celebrate. You hijacked my wedding by forgetting jewelry. You should have told her to do without it. At my baby shower, you terrorized me with your horrible story and no one could get you to stop. I don't want apologies. I want you to stop this pattern of spoiling things or you won't be allowed around me or the baby. Stop being polite to her. Despite her apologies, she is not one bit sorry. Do not let her hold the baby. Tell her she's had too many accidents. Get your husband on board. My sister-in-law deliberately exposed me to a serious illness when I was pregnant, the kind of illness that can cause birth defects. Same apologies. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't think about the fact that this is dangerous for a pregnant woman. My mother-in-law was angry at me that I was upset. Sister-in-law will feel so awful if something is wrong with the baby. The baby was fine. Kim Vidi Lind commented, I would look at my watch and say, perfect timing, Chloe. Just as expected, you found a way to draw all the attention to you. Amazing skill. How did you learn this? Our next story is, I made fun of the guy I'm seeing and he punched me in the face. I've been seeing a guy for 2 months. We make fun of each other playfully a lot, at least I thought that was part of our dynamic. A couple of hours ago, we were cuddling and I told him something like, I felt really comfortable in his arms and could stay there forever. He replies jokingly, that way you'll be extra surprised when I leave you in 30 years for someone younger. I reply, I would never marry you. I thought it would be funnier to say it while serious and not laughing like he replied. Might have been a jerk move. He asked why, and I told him I could see his receding hairline and I would rather die than be married to a bald man. First time I made fun of this, we do mock our appearances, but I had never called him bald. He sat up really quickly and without saying anything, just punched me. He made my nose bleed. He then stood up and asked me why I would say something like that, and I couldn't even speak because I couldn't understand what was going on. He kept repeating himself until I said it was a joke. And he answered, then why did you say it's so serious? I answered it was part of the joke. He told me he felt like I was attacking him personally and I should apologize. I was in such shock that I couldn't even answer. He kept nagging until I said, okay, I'm sorry. And he said, okay, sorry for hitting you then, and just sat down like he didn't just punch me in the face full force. My whole face hurt. I was bleeding, but I just sat there. I couldn't speak, I couldn't react. Eventually, I stood up and went to the bathroom to clean myself, and he later left, still acting like it was nothing. He told me he would call me tomorrow. I'm alone and I still can't process what the freak happened. What do I do? Block him everywhere and never talk to him again? Ask him what the freak? Break up through text? I still can't understand what happened. How do you explain he just hit me with no other warning signs? Was what I said really that mean? Can I do something legally about it? I live alone. He has a key to my house. I don't feel safe. Edit. Thanks everyone for the comments. I ended up calling my mom. She lives in another city but decided to drive here and she'll help me make the police report and sleep with me tonight. I feel like a big baby and still can't process anything. I don't know why I didn't do anything. I just couldn't think or understand what happened. I'm sorry this post is so badly written. I wasn't thinking right either. I took like an 8-hour nap after writing this post and I'm still feeling quite numb and dizzy. He's still sending me memes like it's a random Sunday. Edit 2. Went to the hospital. They admitted me for a couple of hours and decided I just had a mild concussion and let me go. I also went to the police station and they took my statement and told me they can't do anything yet as it's not repeated and if it was in context of an argument. They just gave me a phone number to call and ask for protection if I feel unsafe, but that feels as useless as just an average police call. But at least I have pictures of everything and when he wakes up in a couple of hours, I'll break up with him. So bear with me while I say this first part. What OP said probably was a bit too far even in like a joking context, though I don't know all of the other stuff that they've routinely joked about. That said, nothing ever excuses punching a person in a relationship for an insensitive comment or a joke. In my mind, this immediately makes that guy a person you do not want to be associated with, do not want around. And I hope for OP's sake that when OP goes to break up with him, they let it go and they don't actually linger around or act like they're entitled to a relationship with OP and escalate things further. Our next story is, don't want to stop pranking me? Eat dog food. I have a flatmate who's got way too much time on his hands. He's always pulling dumb pranks that he sees on TikTok like wrapping the toilet in cling film, filling my bed with balloons, you name it. At first it was funny, but it got old very quick and some pranks had quite poor taste, like when he froze my keys in ice, and because of that I was late to class by 15 minutes. The other night, I get home late from class, I am so done and I just need to go to sleep. I head upstairs and there's a stack of like 20 cans blocking my bedroom door, stacked just high enough that it would be dangerous to knock them down. That was the last straw. Instead of knocking them down and going to sleep, I sat down and carefully peeled the labels off every single one, returning them back to his shelf. I knew this would make his life heck, as the man lives off ready meal-like cans, and he had no way of knowing until he opened the can, so he would just have to eat what he gets. But I didn't stop there. I went out, bought a can of dog food, peeled that label off too, and hid it at the back with the other cans. The next day, he sends a message in the group chat about the cans and that I went a bit far. Now he can't plan what he's having for dinner, but has no idea what is coming. I'd say that's a pretty fair revenge. I feel like they're setting themselves up for immediate failure if they're using their actual food in a prank. Here's my college livelihood that I have to persist off of. Isn't this such a funny prank? They're lucky OP didn't just throw it all in a bag and take it to like a donation center or in the dumpster or something. Redditing commented, "Please don't ever use pet food in pranks. At the school I went to, we had a 10-year-old kid die from eating dog food for a prank, and it truly shattered a community. 2 days after eating it, the poor little freaker got run over by a bus while he was in the middle of the main street licking his nuts. You're welcome." Our next story is, my brother abandoned his affair child to Child Protection Services. My brother had been cheating on his wife for a long time. He's wealthy, has his own rather large business in several cities, still handsome at 40-something, and women were usually all around him on business trips. She tolerated it, probably due to his money. Anyway, he got a 27-year-old pregnant. He was 39 at the time. My sister-in-law divorced him after finding out. His daughter was already 1 year old. She was sending money regularly but didn't put her on his name, visited from time to time. The mother of his daughter tragically passed away in a car crash with her friends during a night out. The driver was drunk. I have my own life. I plan to get married soon. I'm 28-year-old female and didn't really have time to deal with his issues. The car crash took place last year. He told me the little girl is being taken care of by her maternal grandmother. She became her legal tutor. Finally, I found him one day drinking. He was kinda drunk and it was clear he had been crying, which was an odd sight for me, as he's always this cold and confident guy that doesn't show any emotions. He told me his daughter wasn't in her grandma's care, but she was given to Child Protection Services because this woman didn't want to take care of the girl. The whole family are very religious Christians, and the existence of this poor child was a shame for them. He also didn't want to take her because he doesn't know how to be a father and it doesn't suit him at all. But he told me he'll take over the custody and will bring the child to live with him. Okay. Meanwhile, this happened. All the papers were done. 3 weeks ago, this little sweetheart moved with him, but it is so difficult. She's very shy, barely talks, doesn't look us in the eyes. She speaks so low and soft that I can barely hear her. If I really kindly ask her to repeat, she gets shy. He hired a 20-something-year-old nanny and she's going to daycare where she stays until 6 p.m. She asks for her mother. Okay, she died, but when is she coming back? This, she asked me yesterday. He doesn't seem to know how to deal with this child. Yesterday, for the very first time, out of nowhere, she approached him and hugged his leg. He froze. This is not the way to go. So personally, I find myself being very conflicted on this. Part of me is saying that it's nice that he's actually at least trying to some effect and providing stuff for the kid. And like it's at least gotten to the point where the kid's tried to hug his leg. So there's like signs of development here. But yeah, it sounds like he's very ill-equipped to really deal with any of this. Celtic Tortoise commented, "The child is the innocent one in all of this. Imagine how afraid and confused she is. Her whole young life has been turned upside down. Tell your brother to grow the freak up. If he's not going to parent her, he should find a loving family that will. There are plenty of people out there who would love to be parents." Our next story is, my husband was laid off from Microsoft by an algorithm after 25 years. His last day is his birthday. My husband has worked for Microsoft for 25 years. He was just laid off, randomly selected by a computer algorithm. His last day is this Friday, his 48th birthday. He's autistic and has multiple sclerosis. He's the most quietly loyal, brilliant person I've ever met. Never missed a day of work. rarely called in sick and would then work from home, worked 60+ hours a week, took on-call shifts during Christmas and Thanksgiving so coworkers with children could be home. He never asked for raises or promotions, he just kept showing up and solving impossible problems. He's won awards for fixing multi-million-dollar bugs. He's mentored hundreds of coworkers, including some who went on to lead teams and divisions. Even the CEOs knew his name, and yet he was let go by a spreadsheet. He got his 25-year crystal a few months ago. Now he's being walked out. He would be so embarrassed if he knew I was writing this. He's proud of keeping a stiff upper lip and not making a fuss. But I couldn't let him leave without someone hearing the story. I don't need pity. I just need someone to know what this world does to the people who give it everything, quietly, consistently, and without ever asking for more. Like, I know Microsoft is a big tech software company, even in the AI space now with like Copilot and whatnot. Even still, I don't know if I were in OP's position that I wouldn't be feeling like it was actually like hand selected. I mean, I would be feeling certainly some type of way. I would be feeling especially targeted. I mean, even if it was algorithm selected, it selected it based off of something. The algorithm ran on something. Like, what is it? Too much tenure? Wilco062 commented, "The worst part is, your story isn't even rare anymore. It's emblematic of a deeper rot in the system. We built this modern tech industry on the backs of people like your husband. Deeply competent, loyal, often invisible behind the scenes problem solvers. The people who don't politic, don't self-promote, don't network, they just do the work. And then when the bean counters come looking to trim the fat, it's those people who get shuffled out because loyalty and institutional memory aren't something a spreadsheet can weigh." Our next story is, "My cancer returned and my husband was happy about it. I learned I resent him and he now disgusts me. I was treated for an aggressive form of ovarian cancer, had to get one ovary and fallopian tube removed, and had 2 rounds of chemotherapy in 2024. I've always been timid, been married 8 years now to this lying, cheating, stealing mofo and done everything I can for him, his parents, and extended families. It's an Indian thing. I was supposed to go to a concert today, but last minute we found out on the scans that my cancer had returned, this time in my right fallopian tube. So surgery it is to have a full hysterectomy now. All this jerk did was smirk and tell me he's no longer going to have to worry about me going to the concert alone. I bought both our tickets, been telling him for months that I wanted to go, and all he had to do was show up with me. 3 months of me just telling him this. He said we'll see, and he last minute says he doesn't want to go because it's a standing event. This jerk of a man has cheated on me, stolen money I earned, and lied to me about his finances. Put his hands on me at times, as well as gaslighting me into thinking it was accidentally done. I'm here now at the hospital ER, being kept for an observation overnight. I had an infection that needed IV antibiotics. He didn't even have the decency to stay the night at the hospital with me. Because of financial reasons, divorce isn't an option right now. I need the insurance for the treatment, and we live with his parents, so I have a roof over my head. There isn't anything I've not done for him. There was a time where I was earning a lot of money, way more than him. I bought him an Xbox Series X and a Series S. I also bought him the disc and digital editions of the PS5. I've cooked and cleaned despite undergoing cancer treatment when Mr. 35-year-old mama's boy who has never done laundry his whole life, nor can he cook to save his life, nor has he ever cleaned a dish or the toilet, and his mom made me cook for family events, festivals, clean up after him, and never till this day I ever even got a thank you for my efforts. Despite all this, he literally smiled and laughed at the fact that my cancer returned. What a horrible thing to do to your wife. Given it's an unconsummated marriage and we've never been physical or intimate, I shouldn't expect much. But the way he smiled and laughed, and then this happiness behind his logic of how now it's going to prevent me from going to the concert, was absolutely disgusting. I truly resent this man, and trust me, after having been pushed this far, I swear if I could get away with it, I would have harmed him. I find this man so disgusting, so sick. Sharing a bed with him feels like a death sentence. I mean, I gotta be honest, I can't imagine living that kind of life as a whole. Like, I know it's a different culture and a different system, but this was an unconsummated marriage from the get-go that's never been physical or intimate, like, let alone how awful this guy is. I just can't ever really imagine sticking through all that OP had, even before all of the terrible stuff. Problem Mountain 2792 commented, OP, this man is barely human. If you can't leave now because of the insurance and healthcare, stay for the treatment and leave the moment you get rid of the cancer. Serve him divorce papers as soon as you're healthy. The fact that this is unconsummated, you live with his family, and you do everything for them is troubling already. It feels like modern day slavery. Stop doing things for them and focus on yourself. Our next story is, I lied my way through a job interview, got hired, and now I'm in over my head, but no one seems to notice. I applied for a job I wasn't qualified for out of desperation. I'd been employed for 4 months, rent was due, and I was down to my last $300. The job posting was looking for someone with 2 to 3 years experience in a field I had barely touched. I had none, so I googled some terminology, watched a few crash courses, and walked into the interview like I belonged there. I threw around a few buzzwords I barely understood and smiled a lot. Somehow, it worked. They offered me the job the next day. Now I've been working here for 3 weeks, and every day I feel like I'm walking on a tightrope. I have 20 tabs open at all times, ChatGPT, Reddit, Stack Overflow, YouTube tutorials, just to survive the day. What's crazy is no one has said anything. My manager compliments me, people come to me with questions. I'm scared they'll eventually realize I'm improvising everything. But at the same time, I'm learning fast. I've already automated parts of my workflow. I fixed something yesterday that the team had been ignoring for months. I don't know if I'm still faking it or actually growing into it, but I've never been this motivated or this scared in my life. OP is the living embodiment of fake it till you make it. That said, I would just say OP should probably try to not really overthink it and just keep doing what they're doing because it sure seems like it's working. And honestly, I gotta say, in all of my years, one of the best ways I've seen some people who are really like go-getter, self-starter type people learn how to do things, learn a craft, is kind of that bashing their head against it and using documentation from other resources to just figure it out until you can do it. Fat Cat on the Track commented, it's been 3 weeks and you've already solved an issue from before you were hired. I would just keep it up. Imposter syndrome is real. Maybe this is the universe throwing you a bone. Smokey the Orange replied, truly. I've had coworkers with 20 years experience managing Google marketing who can't navigate any of their tools. My favorite was the guy who clearly didn't know what he was doing, so he would just refuse to do tasks and claim they were stupid anyway. I would always rather have someone who wants to prove and challenge themselves in a role like this. As long as you're not a jerk who's attempting to manage people in roles you know nothing about, keep it up. Our next story is, I secretly found out my friend is very rich. Found out my friend of 5 years is secretly loaded and I'm low-key freaking out. We've been tight since college, like splitting bills, taking turns buying drinks, piling up some dollars to bet on stake sports parlay, or sometimes even stressing about money together. This weekend, I went to his place and his neighbor casually mentioned he's probably at his lake house. Some light social media digging revealed his family owns a massive company and he's basically a multi-millionaire. I'm not mad he hasn't been funding our friendship, like I'm confused why he's been pretending to be broke. He's seen me stress about money countless times and said nothing. Now I'm overthinking everything. Does he think we would treat him differently? Probably. Is he scared people just want him for his money? Fair. But also, we're supposed to be close friends and he's hiding a massive part of his life. Do I say something? Pretend I don't know? Anyone else discovered their friend was living a secret rich life? You know, I think it would be fair to say that OP should just proceed with caution here. Just because their family owns a massive company doesn't ensure that this guy is a multi-millionaire. I've heard of plenty of examples from families who are very well off, but they refuse to let their kids have an easy ride. He might have access to the family lake house or things that their parents may have bought for them, but in reality, they might not have all that much to their actual name. Mad Romo commented, he could have a complicated issue with money. I knew some people who had rich parents and they would use the money to control their kids. For example, one friend ended up giving back a car his dad gave him because it came with too many strings attached. I think you should just pretend you don't know. He could have many reasons why he doesn't want to talk about his family's wealth. Our next story is, I cut off my entire friend group because they believe I'm demonically possessed. I kept my side of the story in silence for over a year. It finally feels good to get it out, even if that means Reddit. It's been hard to share this. It took some time to get over the initial shock of everything. I, 30-year-old female, was part of a close-knit friend group for several years. We did everything together, and although many of them are non-denominational or fundamentalist Christians, we always got along just fine. I was raised Catholic, but no longer practiced actively. Despite our religious differences, there was mutual respect, or so I thought. One day, one of my closest friends in the group, let's call her Sarah, sat me down for what she called a heart-to-heart. She was clearly distressed and kept telling me that she was worried about my well-being. Then she dropped the bomb. She believed a demonic entity was attached to me and that she had been sensing this for over a year. She claimed the moment it started was a night we all took mushrooms together. According to her, I somehow brought the devil into her home. She told me she saw the face of the devil in a photo taken that night, laughing and mocking us. She had even brought it up to her husband, who apparently saw it in me too. It turns out she'd also been discussing this with the rest of the group behind my back for months, and with her own husband for over a year. When she finally brought it to me, some of our mutual friends, including people I thought were level-headed, jumped on the bandwagon. She suggested I see a priest, get an exorcism, or go back to church for spiritual intervention. Even some of our extended friends who aren't even Christians seemed convinced something was wrong with me. As someone who still holds many core Catholic values, even though I no longer attend church, I was deeply offended. The entire experience left me feeling ganged up on and judged, not supported. Afterward, the group dynamic shifted. I felt ostracized. I noticed people giving me side eyes, making plans without me, and treating me like I was tainted or dangerous. They even criticized me for using sage or crystals for intention setting, calling it devil's work, and saying they were genuinely worried for my soul. Just to clarify, they never said the exact words, "the devil's work." I was overgeneralizing in this statement. What she really expressed was more along the lines of deep concern that I was into that kind of stuff, and that she seriously worried about me messing with sage or crystals because that's the devil's temptation to stray you away from the Lord. These are her real religious beliefs. Eventually, I told Sarah I needed to take a step back. Her response was, "Whenever you're ready to come back, we'll be here with open arms." She clearly believed she was coming from a place of love, and I don't doubt her sincerity, but I couldn't get past how hurt, judged, and betrayed I felt. So I made a decision. I cut ties with all of them. I unfollowed and blocked them on social media, left the group chat, and blocked numbers. I haven't spoken to any of them in over a year. No explanation, no big confrontation, just silence. A few more of the distant friends who were involved but less intense have tried to reconnect, sending friend requests or messages, and honestly I feel bad for some of them. I think they were just caught up in the groupthink, but part of me still feels they had the opportunities to speak up or think for themselves, and they didn't. Sarah and I had been friends for 7 years. We were extremely close. Her intervention broke my trust even if she truly thought she was helping. I haven't responded to her attempts to reach out since. I just can't. So Reddit, sometimes I feel guilty for cutting them all off without a word and choosing not to revisit those friendships. You know, I've heard a few times that taking mushrooms can really change someone's perspective, but I certainly didn't think one of them would be being convinced that your friend has the devil's aura following them around. Like, I'm sorry, but when my friend pops up out of the blue saying, "I think you should get an exorcism," I also think that's probably a good jumping off point of saying, we should stop hanging out. Love Being a Jerk commented, "I kept reading this, waiting for OP or one of their friends to recommend the Sarah person get help immediately." What? I feel like some people took shrooms and watched The Exorcist and had a little group hysteria. OP, you shouldn't feel guilty about cutting people off who have such weak minds that they're sucked into a group hysteria. Many people passed on drinking Kool-Aid because they believed in one person. Our next story is, got questioned at the food bank today, and it really bothered me. I've been going to the food bank for months now and usually walk there with a wagon because I don't have a car. Today, a woman came up to me and asked, "Where's your car?" I told her, "I've been doing this for months," and she walked off for a bit. Then she came back and asked, "Are there kids at home?" I said no, and the lady who usually checks me in told her it's just me. After that, she told me to go to the blue truck and asked if I knew where that was. Even though the truck was literally right in front of me, I said yes, but the whole thing felt weird. It just felt like she assumed it was my first time or that I shouldn't be there. I wasn't doing anything wrong, just trying to get some food like everyone else. Before I left with my food, she told me I should bring a car next time, which honestly felt really rude and dismissive. I've never been questioned like that before, and it made me feel judged and uncomfortable. I'm doing my best, and this experience just left a bad feeling. Thanks for letting me get this off my chest. Does anybody else not find it wild that they're working at a food shelter and they have the lack of brains to say, next time you should bring a car? Like, as if it's a guaranteed thing that everybody that's gonna show up at a food shelter has a car or even can afford to pay for the gas to fuel the car. I mean, OP did nothing wrong here. Joseph Wolfstar commented, seriously, like it's unthinkable that people struggling to afford food wouldn't be able to shell out for a car. Side note, freak car-dependent neighborhood and infrastructure design that A, basically puts a huge must-own car to function tax on everyone living in most of the country, and B, leads to so many people who can't imagine how anyone lives without a car and can't dream of any other viable form of transit. Our next story is, I'm not allowed to use the adult bathroom anymore. I'm an elementary school teacher. I teach severely autistic and cognitively disabled kindergarten children. My class is a very hard class, and I'm the 4th teacher in that classroom this year because they each quit. Anyway, the last 8 weeks I've had some medical stuff going on. My doctors kept treating me for urinary tract infections, but it's not what's wrong with me. I have extreme pain while urinating, have false urges, and can't hold my urine. I have to wear thick pads at work, which I need to change 6 times a day at least. The doctors have prescribed me a bladder pain medication while we try to figure out what's wrong. It stains my urine very dark yellow. At school, I use the teacher's bathroom. Obviously, I guess my urine is leaving a dark halo inside the toilet. Teachers are complaining. Today, when I entered the classroom, my 3 teacher assistants were chatting. One looked at me and told me that the principal told her to tell me that I'm not allowed to use the teacher's bathroom anymore. I'm only allowed to use the nurse bathroom. I sobbed. I called the principal and she confirmed, but tried to soften the blow. It's for my comfort, she said. Bullcrap. My pee stained the toilet and they're all acting like I have an illness that can unalive them all. I may have cancer and they're scared of a yellow toilet bowl. I feel dehumanized and gutted. I'm embarrassed and don't want to be around any of my peers anymore. I'm banished to the nurse's bathroom so they can follow proper cleaning protocol after every time I use the toilet. I feel so ashamed. Man, I hear OP's story and I feel like there has to be some kind of weird discrimination thing going on here. Something in me wants to say they can't do that, but ultimately at the end of the day, they are still providing a bathroom facility. They're not saying that they can't go anywhere at all. I just don't understand. Do they not have somebody in that bathroom that regularly cleans that? As far as an elementary public school goes, if they can keep the toilets clean that all the kids use, there's no excuse, medical or not, that they can't keep the teacher's bathroom clean even if OP's regularly using it. I just can't fathom that there's a medical condition so severe that if you don't clean the toilet every time after OP goes, that it's going to leave a nuclear stain on the toilet. If anything needed to happen here, they needed to talk with the janitors who were cleaning those toilets so poorly, not banish OP from using them for OP's comfort. KG0 commented, "Hi, I'm a janitor at a school and your coworker's logic makes 0 sense to me. I clean toilets daily after only about 80 kids and teachers use them, and the yellow ring just happens, dude. It can be pee, it can be rust from hard water, but whoever is the janitor or in charge of cleaning at your workplace 100% should have the tools to clean it. Also, it's a toilet. It isn't always going to look 100% clean. People literally pee and poop in that, but as long as everything's been sanitized and scrubbed down, it's fine. Your coworkers are being rude and unreasonable about something they don't understand. Don't take their attitudes to heart. Even if it is 100% definitely your literal medical issues staining the toilet, they shouldn't be treating you like this, and they should know how to clean a toilet. Also, thank you for being a teacher. Y'all are so underappreciated nowadays." Our next story is crying because my husband's best friend drove 40 minutes to come pick him up. My father-in-law is in the hospital, me and my husband were with him, and my husband needed a ride home. I was spending the night at the hospital. He casually called his best friend and said, "I need to get home, but I don't have the car." His friend said, "Hold on, I'll be there." He lives 40 minutes away but was at the hospital quicker than that. He was disheveled and looked like he hadn't even combed his hair and came straight out of bed. He drove him home 30 minutes in the opposite direction to his own house and then went back. All this made me cry so much. I'm so happy for my husband and this beautiful friendship he has. May it always remain like this. May he never have to feel how lonely I am in the world save for him. My best friend didn't even call me when my city was attacked during a war. When I asked her, she said, "I knew you were okay, and besides, you know I'm a new mom." She never texts, never picks up my calls, always says it's because she's busy. I realized that it's not the baby that's keeping her busy. Being a friend to me was always lower priority for her. From school days, she was a medical aspirant first, friend second, then a medical student, then a doctor, and now a mom. At every stage of her life, talking to me, being my friend was just this inconvenience that she put up with and did sometimes, but it didn't give her any joy. She never made time for it. And here's a friend sacrificing his sleep, inconveniencing himself for his best friend. I am so envious. When and how will I ever have friends who truly love me? Plus, I ruined the few connections I made at uni because I naively believed Bestie was the only one I could trust, the only one I needed. So now I'm just crying and telling my husband to cherish his friend. You know, I gotta be honest, I kinda feel what OP's feeling. I have my handful of friends, but I gotta be honest, none of them reach out to me. I don't know, I guess my problem is I never reach out to them either. But I guess to be honest, I don't really recall having friends all too often who did initiate. Like, where do I start or where do I go to learn to be a better friend myself? So maybe my friends in the future will be more interested in initiating with me too. Leander T commented, "My wife had several best friends. Before I met her, she was always ready to help her friends out. She was there when anyone needed her. Then we met and her priorities shifted. She decided to put herself first for a while. Some of those friends disappeared quicker than the sun goes down in the evening. Others persisted and would show up when we needed help. She even lost contact with family members she used to be close with. In the end, true friends will stick with you, while the users go their way. It is what it is." Our next story is, "I'm terminating my parental rights tomorrow. I, 25-year-old female, have a 6-year-old daughter with my ex, 28-year-old male. He was my best friend's older brother. I had a crush on him. He came home after we graduated from college and was single. We started dating. I knew we were meant to be together forever, and I knew I didn't want a family with anyone other than him. Everyone thought we were so cute because they all knew I had a crush on him. I thought he was happy. I was wrong. About a year into our relationship, I got pregnant. I wasn't on birth control and just wanted nature to take its course. It was then that it started becoming clearer that he didn't really intend to be with me. I wanted to get married. I was having his baby, so I thought it was time to become a family. He didn't want to marry me. He said he didn't really see us being together long term, but that he would always take care of our kid. I was upset, and if I wasn't already halfway through the pregnancy, I'd have ended it. My parents were upset and said they should have custody if he wasn't going to marry me. I thought that would get him to do the right thing and marry me, but it didn't. And he got a lawyer and got a restraining order against my parents when they said they should be the ones to raise my baby. I wanted my baby to grow up with 2 parents in a healthy marriage. But my parents couldn't go anywhere nearby the baby, and he's kept them away from them. I really hoped he would change his mind after she was born. Because of the restraining order, I had no choice but to live with him. I lived in the upstairs, and he lived downstairs in the basement. He would only talk to me if it was about our daughter. He told me he wanted us to continue living like this until she started school. After that, he said that I would need to find my own place to live at when it wasn't my week. He wanted her to live at the house and us to switch off time with her. He started seeing other people. He's now trying to get back with a girl he dated in high school. They were the homecoming king and queen. That perfect couple. They have the perfect jobs while I'm just the trashy ex who works at Safeway. He and our daughter are close. With me, she's always so closed off and defiant. She won't listen to me and says, "Daddy lets me. Daddy doesn't make me go to church. Daddy lets me go outside." Clearly, she wants her dad, so she can have him. I'm tired of being mother to a girl who doesn't appreciate me. I'm tired of having an ex who clearly wants me out of the way. I'm terminating my parental rights tomorrow, and I'm leaving. I asked my job to transfer me and they're transferring me out of state. I found an apartment I can afford in the new place. Part of the agreement is I won't have to pay child support, provided I agree never to contact her while she's a minor. They don't have to worry about that. It'll be nice to get away. I hope someday that I can have the family I deserve. I know everyone will say I'm a horrible person for abandoning my kid, but she doesn't want me, and why should I care about her when she doesn't care about me? If she wants her horrible, selfish, shallow dad, then she can have them, and I can move on with my life. I'm tired of raising someone else's brat. Edit. I'm getting too many comments. I'm not going to read them all. I don't care if you think this is fake. I typically read stuff on Reddit. I've never posted or commented before. I don't care what other people think of me. But to answer one question, one of the reasons for the restraining order is that my dad physically assaulted him when my ex told him to his face he wasn't marrying me. They can't see her because my brother lives with my parents and is a felon who can't be around children. And my ex had evidence that they've helped my brother violate that condition of parole in the past. It was only so he could see his kids. Because of that, he was able to get a restraining order that lasted 5 years. It's not there anymore, but my parents have given up. I'm driving back so that I can sign the papers tomorrow. I may respond if anyone has anything meaningful to say. So there's definitely a small part of me that says maybe this isn't the right thing to do. Like, clearly she's being fed some stuff from father about how awful OP is or how OP doesn't let her do anything or whatever, but there is a part of me that at least understands why OP is struggling with this so much, and it hurts. I mean, no parent wants to feel like their kid doesn't ever appreciate them or actually likes them or whatnot. Problem is, you don't really have a kid or become a parent solely because of the appreciation they're expected to give. Like, I don't know if it's truly fair to call a 6-year-old who favors the parent that does give in to whatever desires they have a brat and then dip, but emotionally and mentally, I do understand where OP's coming from. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Redditor confession, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.